right, here we go. So we've got rotations in our transformation unit. And let's remember the other two transformations that we've done this unit already. Right here, our R simply slid. There was no turn, and it's not been flipped, and we call this a translation. So a slide is a translation. And right here, our R is flipped over this, this line, and we call this flip a reflection, okay? And we're gonna notice that this part of the R and this back part of the R are the same distance over that line of reflection. And that's one way to check to see if it's a reflection. All right, and today we'll be learning about when the R actually turns, and we call this a rotation. Okay, so it's a turn. A rotation is when the object turns around a fixed point. So this would be the fixed point that it's actually turning about. We can turn two different ways. We can go clockwise, which is the way the hands obviously move on a clock. And don't say right and left, please, because once you go from like 6 o'clock up to this 9 o'clock, you're no longer going right. So we're going to say clockwise or counterclockwise, because counter means against. And so it's not the way the hands move, but against the way the hands move. All right, we're actually going to skip this right here, and we're going to go all the way down to this bottom part. It says, think about the coordinate plane, okay? And let's remember, if we draw a big C, we have quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, if a figure is in the second quadrant, so that's right here, and you rotate it 90 degrees clockwise about the origin, which quadrant would that image lie in? And so we kind of want to think about what a 90-degree turn means. And so we know a 90-degree angle, right? And so that's kind of a turn just this far. Okay, so the length of that angle. Now let's talk about if I put two of these together. So if I've got two 90s, I've got a 180, right? So this is a 90 degree. So if we start here, 180. If I add another one, we've got a 270. And if I go all the way around, it's a 360. You know, the 360 is a full circle, and it's turning all the way around. So if we think about our quadrants here, and if I only move 90 degrees, I'm only jumping one quadrant. A 180, I would be going a 180, I would be moving two quadrants. So if I start out here and I move 90 degrees clockwise, that means if I'm at 12, I'm going to go towards 3. I would move that quadrant 1, and I would end up in quadrant 1. Okay, so that would be quadrant 1. And let's put a Q1. Okay, now if I take that same image, so I'm going to erase this one, and you go counterclockwise about the origin, so that would be from not 12 to 9, and I'm only moving one quadrant, then I would end up in quadrant 3, okay? So essentially a 90-degree turn moves us one quadrant, all right? And a 180 is going to move us two quadrants. All right, now let's flip here. So these are kind of the directions of how we do our rotations. There's a few different ways that I'll show you, and you've really got to decide which way you like to do rotations. I'm going to make those just a little bit darker. Some things that I'm going to notice. So if I'm going to turn 90 degrees, I know that I'm going to be either in quadrant 1 or quadrant 3, because I'll only move one quadrant. And if I'm going clockwise, I will go from 12 towards the 3 o'clock. So I know that I'm going to end up in this quadrant 1 here. So one way that you could do it, and some students like this, some students don't, is I'm going to make this paper look like this sits in quadrant 1. So I'm actually going to turn my paper, okay? And my X and Y are going to change, my X and Y axes. So if this is currently my Y, and that's currently my X. But when I turn my paper, we're going to switch those around. So now when I turn this, now this looks like it sits in quadrant 1. And when I do this rotation, this is what it's going to look like. So some things to notice are that it's now pointing down and not to the right like it was when it was over here. And E is on this. If we pretend, remember this would be our x-axis, right? So if this is now our new coordinate plane, this is quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so E, and what I might do is actually write these quadrants. So E, or these coordinates, I'm sorry, the ordered pair. Okay, so if I start at the origin, I'm going to run 1, 2, 3, and jump 0. Okay, for W, if this were sitting in quadrant 1, I would run 1, 2, and I would jump 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and if I were G, in quadrant 1 after the rotation, I would run 0. I don't go left or right along that x-axis. I only jump 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so when I move it to this quadrant, the actual quadrant 1, this is what it should look like, and I know what my coordinates are. So now I'm going to jump for E. I'm going to run 3 and jump 0. So run 1, 2, 3 and jump 0, and that is where my new E prime should be. Okay, my W, I'm going to run 2 and jump 4. So run 2 and jump 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is my W. And don't forget to mark that prime. Okay, remember that's the image. This is our original image. This is our original shape. And G is run 0, jump 4. So run 0, jump 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's W prime. Okay, and I'm going to connect these. And there we go. Now let's make sure that's what it's supposed to look like. Okay, the E is along the x-axis, the G is on the y-axis, and we've got 2 spaces between those. So yep, my E is on the x-axis, my G, sorry, that's a G prime, is on the y-axis, and 1, 2, there's 2 spaces between the G and the W. Okay, that's one way. Let's say you don't prefer that way, or you're not quite understanding why we turn. Well, then another way is to grab a regular, the best kind of paper is like a see-through. If you've got paper that's more see-through than this, awesome. But what we're going to do is trace this. I'm going to take this piece of paper and I'm going to put it in that quadrant right there. So it's going to cover just one quadrant where the image is. And this corner is going to be right at the origin. So I shouldn't be here, I shouldn't be over here, I shouldn't be here. It needs to be directly in that origin, okay? And since I can kind of see through, I'm going to mark these W and G and E, okay? Now this is going to lie on the W, or sorry, that's the y-axis and the x-axis, right? So I'm going to connect those. I might make some notes to myself, like when I count over, we're 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's this right there, that space represents 4 spaces. And I might also notice that between G and W, there's 2 spaces. So maybe I'll put a little 2 so that I know when I go to trace it, where it goes. And then right here along the E, I'm 1, 2, 3. I'm up 3 on the y-axis. That might help me draw it, okay? So now I'm going to turn it, and we've already determined that it should be in this quadrant, right? So I'm going to put my pencil there at the origin, and I'm going to turn around the origin. Okay, turning around that origin. And that's what the shape should look like. So E, and let's say I'm not really good at the drawing and I'm not sure where it should go. That 3 kind of helps me. So I'm 1, 2, 3 in, and that's where my E prime is, okay? And let's say, again, I'm not really good at that drawing and I can't quite figure out where that G goes. I made myself this little note. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. I might also say if I go this way, 4, then I'm going to go 90 degrees on the opposite quadrant. So on the one quadrant away, 1, 2, 3, 4. G prime. And then that W is really hard to plot because you'd be like guessing and like quickly moving it. So that's why I put that little note. I'm going to go 1, 2 up right there. That's going to help me. I'm going to go 2 in this direction so that I don't get to this G and I'm not really sure which 2 to go. This image, this kind of really helps. So there we go. That's 2 different ways that you can do rotations. Okay, I've even seen students who are really great at going, okay, well, if I'm moving 90 degrees, this, if I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4 this way, then I should be going 1, 2, 3, 4 this way. And for the W, if I'm going 4 and 2, then I'm going to go 4 and 2 for my W. So it's kind of what your preferences and knowing how this rotation is. And please use whatever things you need to help you. So let's come down here. Go ahead and press pause and try this one. And then I'm going to do it when you're ready. Join me and press play. And I'm going to outline those again so that I have a really good way to place this paper. Okay. So again, one way, let's read our directions. I've got to go 90 degrees and we're going clockwise again. So 12 to 3, this is the direction that I'm moving, right? And so we're going to moving right here. Oh, look at that. It says counterclockwise. Sorry about that, you guys. That's written kind of funny. So let's go counterclockwise. Let's change it up. So we're actually going to go 12 to 9, right? And so I keep turning. Get rid of that. Keep turning. And there we go. This shape needs to go right there. So we'll be in this quadrant here. Another way, someone just recently taught me this, but if this is my hand on the clock, we're going to go counterclockwise. So I'm going to be turning this way, and once I get to that shape, then I'll stop so I know I'm going this way. So that's where I should be going, okay? So however you want to figure out how that counterclockwise is, go for it. Just make sure you're being careful about that. So this quadrant right there I know is going to be sitting there. So what I could do is turn this. So this looks like it's sitting in quadrant 1. So I'm going to turn it. So when I redraw it, I know that I'm going to be pointing this direction. Okay, so on the quadrant, I'm going to be pointing off away from quadrant 2. So I could write the coordinates. So if this were quadrant 1, X is run 0, jump 2, so 0, 2. G is run 0, jump 1, 2, 3, 4, so 0, 4. Q, I think that's a Q. I'm going to run 1, 2, and jump 2, so 2, 2. And then U is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, U. Right? So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to plot that. So run 0, jump 2, that's my X prime. Run 0, jump 4, and go ahead and plot those. And then I'm going to move on to if you want to use this rotation. Okay, so what I'm going to do is trace this. That sits at the origin. My X is right there, and I might even count 2 over. Okay, and that's X. It's very important that you mark that. And then G is 2 over from that. Trace that, and G is there, and I'm going to write a little 2 there so that I remember there's a space of 2. U is kind of hard to see right there, so I might have to move this and say 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to be 3 away from an origin, whatever origin that lies on after I move it. And then Q is 2 down from that X, and so I can kind of see it through here, but I'm going to go 2 there, so I know that's a space of 2. All right, and so I know I'm going to turn it counterclockwise. It'll end up right there. So X and G, I'm going to make sure that I'm 2 from here and 2 from there. So 1, 2 up, yes, and 2 up from there. Great. And then Q is kind of hard to mark, but I did go 2 straight from there. So 1, 2 is Q. And then U is also kind of hard to mark, but I know I'm 3 from there. So I'm going to just move that and make sure that I'm 1, 2, 3. So I was off on there. I would have marked that wrong otherwise. So U prime. So I'm going to draw this and make sure it looks like the same shape so I didn't mess up. So I might do something like from Q, I'm 1, 2, 1, 1. So from here, I'm 1, 2, and 1. So I'm right there. So if you followed those coordinates, you should have gotten this shape, or if you did this, you should have gotten this shape. Right, and over here, now we're gonna do a 180. And it doesn't matter if you go clockwise or counterclockwise, because no matter what, I'm moving 2 quadrants. So I'll move 1, 2 if I go counterclockwise, or 1, 2 if I go clockwise. I end up in quadrant 1 no matter what. Let's go ahead and make these lines a little bit more prominent. Okay. Some things I'm going to notice. T and is that an I? Are along the outside. And if I'm even, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, T and I should still be out here on the outside of the graph. And E is at 1, 1. So that's actually going to be at 1, 1. Now let's say you really like this. Let's go ahead and draw this. I'll do this one first this time. So E. And I'm on the outside of the graph. I know there's 2 spaces between there. T is the top one and I is the bottom one. And I might note to myself that there's 1 space between the axis here, this x-axis, and T. There's 1 space right there. All right, so I'm going to turn it. Make sure you're not shifting or flipping, but you're actually turning. And I'm not there yet. I'm going to turn all the way around. And now I'm going to make sure those are lined up with the 2 axes again. And E is right there. So I'm 1, 1, 1, 1. That's where my E is. Okay. If I'm not sure where the T goes, well, I did mark 1 up, right? So I want to be on the outside of the graph and 1 away. So that's where T prime is. Sorry, that's an E prime. And I is 2 up from there. 1, 2, I prime. And there we go. So I'm going to turn this paper and I'm going to make it look like it's sitting in quadrant 1 and make sure that looks just like that. So it's upside down and the E is facing that direction, right? Like it's all pointing this way. And that's what that's doing right there. It's pointing that way. All right. So real quick, let's identify if these are rotations or not. So right here, did it turn right there? Yep, this is a rotation. Yes, and let's say this was our original. Then what kind of turn would that be and how many degrees? It would be counterclockwise and it would be 90 degrees because we only moved 1 quadrant. And let's go right here. And nope, this did not turn. It just simply slid. Okay, there was no turning. If it would, this triangle would be facing a different way. That right angle would be up here. Okay, and let's see if this is a rotation. Some students like to think that this is just a reflection, that it's been reflected. But if it was reflected, it would be either here or here. So it's not a reflection. It actually did turn. And actually, you know what? The best way to check is to actually turn this paper. So I'm going to make this look like it's sitting right there. So I'm turning it completely upside down. Okay, and so if this, ready, should be pointing down, our house should be kind of upside down, right? Or our pentagon. And yep, that's exactly what it is. It's pointing upside down. All right.